Hey there, Amy from Doctor Who. How about I go back to your place and I stick my sonic screwdriver in your TARDIS? Oh, didn't see you there. 2011 has kind of been a mixed bag in terms of films. There's been some disappointments like Cowboys and Aliens, Sucker Punch and Hangover 2. And there's been some flat out stinkers like Jack and Jill and Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1. But despite that, I did see a lot of really good films in 2011, and in between those pieces of crap were gems that I really enjoyed. So just like I did for 2010, I decided to make a top 10 list of all the films that I saw in 2011. And I know I'm like 2 months late, but hey, better late than never, right? And although I saw a lot of films in 2011, there are other movies that I've seen making other critics' top 10 lists that I haven't got around to seeing yet. Because they either didn't come out in England until 2012, didn't come out in a cinema near me, or I just haven't got around to seeing them yet. Such as Shame, Win-Win, The Muppets Movie, Beginners, Tree of Life, The Skin I Live In. I also have a few honorable mentions in no particular order of some films that narrowly missed my top 10. 50-50, The Adventures of Tintin, Attack the Block, Cedar Rapids, Contagion, Hannah, Limitless, Midnight in Paris, Moneyball, Rango, Source Code, Super 8, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, as well as some other films that I had to leave off. So without further ado, here are my top 10 films of 2011. Number 10, a tie between 13 Assassins and ISIL The Devil. Yeah, I know it's kind of cheating to have two films tied for the same spot, but I like them both pretty much equally and I wanted to give them both a spot in the list. Both of them are Asian films, so I guess that's a small similarity. 13 Assassins is a samurai film by Japanese director Takashi Miike, who is one of my favorite directors with awesomely messed up movies such as Ichi the Killer and Audition. 13 Assassins is probably my favorite film he's made yet. It's a beautifully shot Shogun-era samurai epic, with a great ensemble cast of well-developed and likable samurai and ronin badasses. It feels like an homage to the classic samurai films of Akira Kurosawa, and has an extremely satisfying action climax. I mean, what other movie can say it has a 40-minute long ending battle scene? Okay, point taken, but I'd take Japanese samurai badasses over Shia LaBeouf getting raped by Mr. Chow any day. My other number 10 spot is ISIL The Devil. ISIL The Devil is the Korean cat and mouse revenge thriller. It's got the disturbing torture elements that I would have expected from a Takashi Miike movie, combined with a unique twist on the vigilante genre that blurs the lines of right and wrong while on a quest for revenge. The film is an unpredictable and unsettling thriller ride with unforgettable set pieces. But what really made the film for me were the two main performances. Choi Min-sik from Oldboy plays the role of a despicable and horrifying villain so well. And the protagonist also gives a really intense and charismatic performance of a character that I could relate to at first, but gradually his actions become more and more immoral, to a point where he's almost a villain himself. ISIL The Devil proves once again that Korean filmmakers really do know how to make great thrillers. Number 9, X-Men First Class. X-Men First Class was a film that I had somewhat low expectations of going into it, but I was pleasantly surprised by the stylish origin story. And it's honestly one of the best comic book movies I've ever seen. Swinging 60s setting works as a great backdrop. There's a good supporting cast of cool mutants. You got Kevin Bacon as a solid villain. But James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as Professor X and Magneto really blew me away. Both of them give such charismatic performance of these likable badass characters with strong chemistry together. And oh yeah, best cameo ever.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lensher.
Tell Xavier.
Go fuck yourself.
Number 8, Super. No, not Super 8. Super. Super is a dark comedy about a wannabe crime-fighting vigilante. I know that sounds kind of familiar to Kick-Ass and Defender, but this film has its own individual style to it. The film stars Dwight Schrute from The Office, who is excellent as the lead role. Ellen Page plays a totally insane but sexy sidekick called Bolty. Nathan Fillion plays a really small but memorable and hilarious role as a character called the Holy Avenger. There's laugh out loud funny parts, but there's also brutal and downbeat scenes. The film also ends on a really well executed, bittersweet ending that honestly did leave an emotional impact on me. There's also a strangely arousing rape scene, and there's references to tentacle hentai, so that's an insight to the crazy stuff I'm into. Number 7, The Guard. Maybe it's because I'm half Irish, but I love this Irish-based dark comedy action film. It's by far the film that made me laugh out loud the most all year. With its excellent script and instantly quotable lines of dialogue, It's got an eccentric cast of supporting characters, as well as Don Cheadle, who plays a fish out of water American FBI agent. The real reason that this film is on the list is Brendan Gleeson. Brendan Gleeson plays the lead character Sergeant Jerry Boyle. He seems like an asshole at first, but he's just so quick-witted, and Gleeson's perfect comedic timing makes him a really likable character. He's actually more intelligent than he actually lets on.
Now these men are highly dangerous, in the vicinity of $500 million worth of cocaine on board.
Yes, Sergeant. I thought only black lads were drug dealers, and Mexicans.
Apologize to the man.
Apologize for what? For your racist slurs, for one thing.
I'm Irish, sir. Racism is part of my culture.
Brendan Gleeson is really what made The Guard for me, and I highly recommend it. Number 6, Hugo and The Artist. Yeah, I know, another tie. I probably should have just made a top 12 list, but I've gone this far now. Also, the two films do share one similarity. Hugo and The Artist are both love letters to classic cinema. Hugo is Martin Scorsese's family film with unique visuals, excellent cinematography, and a great cast all around. In particular, Asa Butterfield, who's only 14 years old, gives one hell of a performance. Veteran actor Ben Kingsley really gives a heartfelt performance. And even Sacha Baron Cohen, who plays a slapsticky comic relief character, is surprisingly likable. Hugo also has some of the best atmospheric 3D effects I've seen in a film. Despite being a fun family fantasy movie, Hugo is also a loving tribute to the cinema legend Georges Méliès, and really showcases the effort, hard work, and interesting techniques it took to film and edit footage back in the day. My other number 6, The Artist, is also an homage to the classic black and white silent films in a much more explicit way than Hugo. I was a bit skeptical about seeing The Artist at first because I just assumed it would be a pretentious art house film, but that's not what it is at all. It's just so ambitious that it's hard to hate, but it nails almost every aspect perfectly. It's got a beautiful visual style, wonderful orchestral score, it's humorous and charming, and excellent performances including Berenice Bejo and a standout portrayal by Jean Dujardin, who probably gives the best performance I've seen in a film all year. And oh yeah, the dog is awesome too. Number 5 is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I was a bit wary going into this because I'm a pretty big fan of the Swedish original film, and I'm not really a big fan of remakes, especially one of films that only came out 3 years ago. But David Fincher's dark, intense thriller Girl with a Dragon Tattoo honestly surpassed the original in my opinion. I felt it had a smoother pace, the mystery elements were more intriguing, it's got a rockin' soundtrack, incredible opening credit sequence, and it even had better performances than the original. Especially Rooney Mara, who I prefer to Noomi Rapace and stole every scene she was in as Elizabeth Salander. Number 4, The Warrior. I missed The Warrior when it did its first run in cinemas locally here, so I took an hour-and-a-half journey to Leicester, which was the nearest place that was being shown. And for the first time in my life I watched a film on my own. I can honestly say that I'd do it again. The Warrior is one of the best sports films I've ever seen, with intense fighting scenes and generally gripping and emotionally investing storyline. This is the first time in a Rocky-type film where I really didn't want either character to lose in the final fight, because they were both equally likable, deserving, and both had fair motivations for wanting to win. Nick Nolte is well deserving of his Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor, and Batman's gonna have his work cut out against Bane in Dark Knight Rises because Tom Hardy is a goddamn beast in this movie. Number 3, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Harry Potter has always been a big part of my childhood, and I've kinda grown up along with it, so it kinda had to be on this list. But they really did end the series off with a bang. Spectacular special effects, non-stop action scenes, and a fast pace. Harry, Ron, and Hermione's performances were at their best and we're all rooting for them. Ralph Fiennes gave a really fun and over-the-top villainous performance. And Alan Rickman as Severus Snape really stole the show in a really gut-wrenching flashback sequence. An epic conclusion to a great series. Number 2, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This was another one that I really didn't expect to love as much as I did. It's got groundbreaking computer-generated effects, compelling and engaging story, great action climax on the Golden Gate Bridge. Most importantly, it introduced us to the most badass and likable character in the film all year, the CGI ape named Caesar, portrayed extremely well through motion capturing by Andy Serkis, who sadly has gone unrecognized for his efforts by the award boards. I really enjoyed Rise of the Apes and I hope that this reboot becomes the start of a long-running series. Finally, my number 1 film is Drive. I've heard a lot of people calling Drive slow and boring, and I even read that a woman sued the makers of Drive because it wasn't enough like Fast and Furious 5. Well, if anyone's getting sued, then it should be the makers of Fast 5 for completely raping the laws of physics in that movie. In the wrong hands, Drive could have been a generic action blockbuster, but instead it's a stylish throwback to the action films of the 80s, to create a modern noir action thriller that is just plain and undoubtedly cool. From the funky as hell synth 80s sounding soundtrack, in-your-face Tarantino style gore, brutal death scenes and getaway chases, to the all-round outstanding cast of actors, including Ryan Gosling, who doesn't really say much, but gives a really intense performance through facial expressions. The other supporting roles of Bryan Cranston, Ron Perlman and Carey Mulligan all did a solid job too, but it's Albert Brooks who stole the show for me. I mainly know Albert Brooks from comedic roles such as Hank Scorpio from Simpsons, but in Drive he plays the most threatening and menacing villain all year, and has all the best lines of dialogue in the film. Drive is my favourite film of 2011 and I highly recommend it. So that's my belated list of my favourite films of 2011. 2012 looks like it will be a really good year for films. We've already had 2 great films of The Grey and Chronicle, and I'm really looking forward to The Avengers, Prometheus, Dark Knight Rises and The Hobbit. Until then, thanks for watching.